Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, Can-Am Missing Project. And that is the executive producer of the show, sleeping on the job. Typical. This is what I have to deal with. Yap, yap, yap. Demanding. Wants more time off. Wants more brushes. Wants more scratches. You good girl, Huck. He's a good girl. She always wants me to give her big accolades. Yes, a good girl. You're a good girl. She goes, hey, leave me alone. I want to sleep. Okay. Don't forget, friends, you can watch Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State. Yes, those are UAPs right there next to Mount Rainier. And that's part of the show. You can watch it right now over on Amazon. You can rent it for next to nothing. Please go do it and then leave a review on Amazon. We need them. You are appreciated. Okay. This is a Skinwalker Ranch review. Season 7, Episode 12. Do not leave. This is a good one. And my buddy, Dave Mason, who's in that Missing 411 Washington State movie, he's front and center in this episode. Did a great job. And I wish the Skinwalker show would use Mason more, because his differential FLIR is out of this world good. And they saw things with it tonight that they would have never seen otherwise. No way. I would rank this as one of the best shows so far this season. They start off with the helicopter pilot, Cameron, flying and seeing a metallic object below him, flying over Homestead 2 near the treetops, right near the edge of the bubble. Doesn't make any sense why it's there. But remember this. They see it, it's during the day, and normally you don't see these things. So did that UFO UAP want them to see it and allow them to see it? Because a lot of times they only see these things with FLIR or with special optics. So why did they see it? They also had Doppler radar there, and it didn't pick it up. And Cameron in the helicopter swerved around and tried to circle where it disappeared under some trees. Didn't see it. It vanished. Cameron said it looked like a cylinder that was rotating. Cylinder, then rotating. And they had seen a cylinder object before near Homestead 2. The cylinder objects in the UFO world are just what you would imagine. Long, thin tubes, rounded at the end. No obvious propulsion. Most of the time, there's no antennas or anything sticking out of them. Smooth sides. They're very odd. So after they're done filming all this, they cut it down. The next day, they go into the briefing room. And Eric had already gone through the files. And the Doppler people had gone through their files. So as these things are going on, Doppler radar was going around continuously. And they showed one frame where the radar picked up 5 objects that were not seen by anything else, that were all just outside of the triangle. No shape, just a blimp on their radar, and nobody had seen anything. And there was nothing in the air during those times. 1 minute later, on the same radar, they saw 3 objects that were different. Travis kept calling these UAPs. And it was near that same time that the helo, Cameron, saw that UFO flyby. The helicopter had a camera on it, and they reviewed that. And it showed that metal-looking craft that we're talking about. And it showed it some pretty good definition. It definitely was not a bird, a plane, an insect. It was too big. Then they went into their first break. And they all talked about how this thing was spinning, oddly. Near Homestead 2 in the bubble. At one point, as it was being filmed, it either changed its angle or it got larger, because there was a couple second flash of it being larger and brighter. This has happened a lot filming UFOs. They change their angle or they somehow are changing their appearance. Travis called it a physical craft with capabilities of flight. And you could tell that Travis was a little bit concerned about this. Now remember, these UFOs in the past episodes have had the ability in the bubble to push the drones out of the way. Drones trying to go inside the bubble somehow are getting pushed out from a force that can't be seen. Now, no one has really said this, but I'll say it. These UFOs, UAPs, have had a history of flying around the drones and flying around the helicopter. Now, so far, they have not tried to damage or hurt a human in that helicopter. But they have destroyed drones, and they've destroyed other equipment. So are they specifically going after equipment to destroy and not hurt people? Well, what if the game is upped and they keep pushing and poking the bear? Will they try to take down the helicopter? I think that's a concern that everyone should have that no one is really expressing right now. I'm a little bit surprised. They came back from the break, and Travis said that when they looked at that long, thin object, UFO, they said it was at least 2 feet across. It was pretty good size. So then Eric recommended that they take out lasers and smoke, and they put the lasers above the triangle, and they try to ID with the smoke what's going in and out of the lasers, just like they did in the Homestead. They said that Brandon and Cameron and Dave Mason would be coming back. Dave should be in every episode, in my humble opinion. They called it a laser grid experiment using multiple lasers. And they would occupy the airspace above the triangle. And he said that they were looking for Eric said they were looking for any changes in the lights. And they were bringing special effects experts on site. I've never seen this before. It was pretty neat. They had what looked like a real jet engine. A huge jet engine that was on a trailer. The idea being is that this jet engine is used to propel huge amounts of smoke out one end, using special chemicals that they had that they would put in one end and blow out the other. And they did do a test, and it blew out a huge amount of smoke. So their idea is to blow out the smoke, put it into the triangle, and see if anything is flying around in there that they could see with the lasers. I think it was a good idea. They called it a turbojet engine on a trailer. They had multiple high-speed cameras set up around the triangle. Dave Mason used his specialized FLIR cameras looking for heat signatures in that area as well. So They turn the lasers on. They turn the jet engine on. And not surprising to anybody, almost every expert that has ever gone to the ranch has had system failures. That jet engine failed at 4 different levels, according to the operator. He said almost immediately the battery drained, the fuel filter failed, the fuel control system failed. The guy said, I've been doing this and I've been working with that for 35 years. We just completely overhauled it, put new parts in to just make sure everything worked right. We did the test the day before, it worked perfect. He goes, like, the guy was absolutely flabbergasted that his system failed. Well, we just saw it the day before, it worked fine. This is the way the ranch is. It can take down electronics easily. Travis piped up and said, this place demoralizes expert after expert. Then he said to put the thermal drone up, and Dave Mason would be watching the airspace with a specialized FLIR. So they put the drone up, and as it's flying towards the triangle, all of a sudden an invisible force pushes it 15 feet back almost immediately. You could see it. And the drone operator says, same thing's happened before here, but it never happens anyplace else. How can an invisible force push it? So they go right over to Dave Mason, who's watching this on his specialized FLIR, and you can't see anything around it at all pushing it. I was a little bit surprised. I thought the FLIR might pick something up. So the drone is trying to get inside the triangle and couldn't do it. So they brought it back with no success. The second part of the experiment that night had to do with a helicopter. And what they were going to do is have somebody hang out the side of the helicopter, shine a laser from the helicopter down to this giant board they had hanging up down below. And they wanted to see the laser go through the triangle and if there was any disruption. So Pete Kelsey was hanging outside the helicopter. Helicopter goes up. They shine the laser out. It hit the board. Perfect. No disruption. But at the same time, Kelsey says, hey, I just saw something out of the corner of my eye fly by the helicopter. And since we're barely moving, it couldn't have been a bird or an insect because this thing was going really fast. Now, remember what I told you about these UFOs flying near the helicopter. They've done it in the past, and they're doing it again. Again, nobody's voicing any real concern about this. It bothers me. And at about this time, Dave Mason, my buddy from the movie, who's in the movie, says to everyone, hey, hold it. There's something flying near the FLIR. And it's pretty big. So you have other personnel on the ground. Everybody's looking up, doesn't see anything but the helicopter and the drone. But on Dave's FLIR, there's something out there that's following the drone around, then disappearing and going up and following the helicopter around. So they take another break. They come back and Dave Mason has an ID on another object right near the helo. And you could see it following it every place it went and then disappearing. So remember, the FLIR is picking up heat. How can something have heat to it and then it's gone? Shouldn't the heat slowly dissipate? Wouldn't physics tell you that? I don't get it. Well, Dave is doing the best he can to watch and catch this UFO as it disappears and reappears near the helicopter or the drone. The entire crew now is mesmerized by what's going on. Well, they again deploy this drone to just under 300 feet as the helicopter is at 2,200 feet, and they head it for the triangle. Mason caught the UFO chasing the drone as it goes towards the triangle. Now, Travis said multiple times, does that UFO have something to do with keeping the drone out of the triangle? There's nothing overt about what it's doing, if that's what it's doing it, because you can't see it doing anything like that. Now, it was in front of the drone, behind the drone, above the helicopter, below the helicopter. Travis at one point says, what the heck is up there? Then Dave Mason catches it on his FLIR that it's right near the helicopter, and then everyone says, yeah, it's large, and then boom, it disappears again. When you try to think about this thing logically, you've got a lot of spare parts out there fooling with you. So you've got the triangle, and you've got the bubble, and they're trying to get in above the triangle. And you got the drone coming, you got the helicopter. The helicopter can fly in above the drone, above the bubble in the triangle, not a problem. The drone, it's not letting it penetrate it. It never has. So why let one and not the other? That's one question. And then why is this UFO staying so close to the drone and the helicopter? Now, in the past, they haven't had Mason's differential FLIR on site, so that's why they never saw probably this UFO following the drone before when it couldn't penetrate. Which has been a mistake. They should have had Dave Mason there the whole time that they're doing these things. So they come back from a break, and Brandon, Cameron, the pilot's brother, who owns the ranch, orders his brother to pull the plug and land the helicopter. He says he is concerned for their safety. Good job. The helo lands safely. They have a short discussion that this is probably one of the most productive nights they've had in a long time. Oh yeah, it was. And everyone goes to bed. They come back a couple days later, and they're 2 car hours away in Salt Lake City at Brandon's office. And they've got everybody but Dave Mason at a table sitting around talking. And they had him on a Zoom call, and they brought Dave up and asked him to bring up his footage, which he did. And he said that this UFO first appeared a quarter mile from the triangle, and it was big and bright and following the drone as it went towards the triangle. Travis said again, what is that thing? And then he said, it emerged out of thin air. Okay. I want everyone to think about this. Do you know how many times in my videos that I've talked to you about missing people, people say, yeah, it's like he disappeared in thin air. This thing appeared out of thin air. See the correlation? How many times this can happen? So my question is, if that UFO envelops something, What if it landed over an animal and enveloped it in its aura? Would the animal disappear? If that oval thing has the ability to disappear at will, can anything that it's around also disappear? And what makes it have the ability to disappear? I want you to think about this stuff. They said that the UFO was 4 times the size of the drone. And Mason made the comment that based on the FLIR image, it was very warm. Cylindrical object was also seen on just a standard high-speed camera at the ranch. As they were shutting down the experiment that night, it was zooming away. Seen on a regular night camera. And then Brandon said he was very concerned about his UAPs following his brother's helicopter. So I have a question for everybody. How many times has that helicopter been at the ranch in 7 years? I know of at least 10 times, maybe more. How many times have UAPs been reported around that helicopter? At least 3 or 4 times. In my humble opinion, every time anything is flying up in the air around that ranch, there's a scout orb or something flying around monitoring what's going on. I'll put it out there. The reason that they haven't seen it the other 6 or 7 times, they didn't have the capability to see it. Meaning they didn't have Dave's differential FLIR up. Now, in the ranch's defense, I've heard, I can't confirm this, I've heard that they offered Dave a full-time job at the ranch, but he has a full-time business in Washington and he couldn't do it. And we filmed at his business in that movie right there. Missing 411 Washington State National Parks. I think that they are taking and making incremental steps on this. And I think that they're methodically going about it. That methodical nature turns some people off. But what they're doing has to be done. Now, is there other capabilities that they have to see things at night that aren't being used? Well, you have night vision. I didn't see anybody using that night. And there's other things. But Dave's differential FLIR is different than any other FLIR you've ever seen. And it's much more advanced. And he made it and patented it. So, yeah, it's special. Which is why we got things flying around Mount Rainier when we were filming the movie. Next steps for the ranch. I think the bubble has great significance. It's been there. It's always been there. I don't know why it's there. It could be some more advanced radar technology. It could be the best thing I heard was when airplanes come towards an airport in the fog, there's a transponder that emits a signal that the planes hone onto and fly to and land. Somebody, I can't take credit for this, they said, well, what if it's a space beacon that's used by people from other galaxies to hone into to get here? And the reason there's so much activity is because there aren't that many of these on Earth. And I thought, that's brilliant. That's really smart. But I've never heard them discuss that at the ranch. And if it is that, why won't they allow the drone to penetrate it? I don't get that either. Now, next week, they're supposed to go back up into the mesa and do some more work there with whatever's in the mesa. Now, as I've stated before, and I'll say it again, I don't think that you're ever going to see them dig into that mesa. And I put this in another episode, but in case you didn't hear it, one of my theories is that it's a hazmat waste dump. And whoever occupied that ranch decades ago was approached by some company, not the government, but some company that had hazardous waste, maybe contracted by the government to dump the waste at a hazmat site. That costs thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to find a hazmat site and dump it. Well, what if you paid that rancher 10 grand and hey, we're going to dig up your hillside here and put some stuff in it. We're going to bury it, and then don't ever dig there. So when subsequent owners purchased that property, the owners made them sign a deed saying they couldn't dig there. And this is true. It was in the deed that Bigelow bought that ranch. He couldn't dig on that property. So if there is a hazardous dump there, if Brandon dug on that site and found a hazardous dump, it would be his responsibility to clean it. And that could cost millions of dollars. Yes, millions. Because you have to remove all that dirt that's touched by it. You have to remove it into a hazardous waste site. Oh, it would be horrendous. So, to be precautionary, I doubt they're ever going to drill there no matter what. I'm sorry, not drill. They're ever going to dig there on that hillside. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, I greatly appreciate you being here. You got to trust me. I'm not going to sugarcoat these episodes. If I don't think they're good, I'm going to say it. But I like this episode a lot. I thought it was good. I thought they made some inroads. I especially like Dave Mason's part. His flair is important. And please keep watching. Remember, the owners of this ranch before Brandon had told me, well, the managers of the ranch, the chief of investigation, that they thought that what was happening at that ranch had to do with my research. Fact. You be safe. Remember, kindness is key. It doesn't cost you anything to be kind. It doesn't cost you anything to smile. And in the long run, folks, if you just brighten up one person's day, think about that gift. And remember, karma, it'll always come back to you. It'll probably come back to you tenfold. It doesn't hurt. Be safe. Be kind. Paulides out.